Thank you all, and hopefully you'll stay awake after lunch. I'm right in the middle. So how many of you feel hurried through meetings and trying to get to family commitments and not having enough time for yourself? Hallelujah, yes. And many times we also feel that we're disconnected from the people around us because of having so many of these commitments, our emails going off, our instant messaging going off. And so we just create this experience that we're not paying attention. So this is why I created the B3 method. And I created this methodology so that we could be more present with the people around us, whether we're at work or at home, but also feel more fulfilled in our career and life. And this is not working. So I'm going to start off with my story. And when I was 16 years old, I played violin and viola in something called the Cincinnati Youth Symphony Orchestra. And this orchestra was in conjunction with the Cincinnati Symphony. This is not the right slide. When I grew up, all of my time was spent playing viola, painting. Art was just in my blood. Now, this is a picture of me playing with the symphony. Try to find me. I'm way in the back. But this was, every year we played with the Cincinnati Symphony. It was something very time-intensive that we rehearsed and rehearsed all year long. At the time this picture was taken, my life actually changed overnight. My parents had gotten divorced, and not only did they get divorced, but my mom lost her business. She was an entrepreneur at the same time. And we had financial creditors calling us every hour on the hour, trying to collect money. We had to sell our house, but we didn't just have to sell our house. We had to sell everything inside the house. So I sat in my bedroom as everything was tagged. People walked out the door with my stuff, the things that meant most to me. And I began working 3 jobs at this time, not only to cover my own expenses, but to cover the family expenses and to get groceries. When it was time to go to college, the choice was no longer going into the arts. It was, I remembered that my grandfather had been a CPA, and all the stories about him being a CPA was that it was a safe career. So I decided this was the route that I was going to go in my life. I didn't look back. I worked really hard all the way through my career and didn't turn right or left. But there are times in our life that we have these defining moments. And this was mine. This was when my second child was born. He was a preemie, and I got very sick from this pregnancy. And at this point in my career, I had achieved many career highs. I became a CPA partner very early at 32 years old. But because of this sickness, it stopped me. I could no longer do the activities I had always done. I was no longer able to keep up with the workload that I had kept up with in the past. So what happened from all of this is my doctor said, you can no longer do physical activity for the next year. The only thing you're allowed to do was yoga. And as a type A personality, that was the last thing I wanted to do. But I did. I went because it was really important that I did something for myself. And what happened for me is I started being alone with my thoughts, and all of these things that I had pushed down during those years started coming to the forefront through yoga. And I went to my husband and I said, I think I need to go to a therapist. And he said, why? We have this great career, we have this great family. And I said, I don't know, something feels off right now. And just to preface this, when I grew up, my parents said anyone that went to a therapist was weak. So I had to overcome that in order to walk into the therapist's office, which was one of the hardest things but most courageous things people can do. And when I'm telling you this story, I'm sure there's stories in your life that are coming to mind where we get to this point of we know something is off, but we don't know where to begin. And what happened with me through this process was that I wanted to quit everything. I wanted to quit my job. I wanted to run away. That was my first thought. But what I really needed to do was pause. Now, there are real reasons if you have to get out of abusive situations and so forth to leave. But in my situation, it was not that case. I was having an internal change going on that I needed to pause and actually just decide what I was going to do next. And after going to therapy for a while, what came up was I wasn't living a life true to myself. And I had to start pivoting and figuring out what was next. And a lot of times we do things for ourselves and feel like it's selfish when we take time away from work and from our family. And we call this work-life balance. However, work-life balance can be a stressor on its own. That, do we have enough of it? Is it the right thing? We look at somebody else and we say, it seems to really be working for them, I should do that. But that's not actually where the research is with this at all. Work-life balance doesn't have to do with quantity of time, it's the quality. And that's why I coined the term work-life harmony. It is the ebb and flow of our life. It could be 5 minutes one day, it could be an hour the next day. The important part is, what does it do for you? Do you get that release? Do you have an experience that you can actually reset and be more present for the people in your life? So the first thing is to ask you a question so that you can actually sit back and think about, where would you begin with this? And the question is, when you were a child, what were the things that brought you the most happiness? Does anyone want to volunteer? Because it should be the first thing that comes to your head. What? Riding a horse. I saw a hand. Tap dancing. What else? Swimming. Getting a trampoline. So this is very common that for many of us, this does not have to do with exercise. This has to do with a release. It's the actual feeling that we have when we do these activities. And that's why the amount of time doesn't matter. But when we don't do them, we steal from ourselves. And the research about this is we actually pull ourselves back from doing these things. We were told we were right-brained or left-brained. And that's actually a myth. The research is that we are not right-brained or left-brained. We actually need both sides of our brain to do any activity. Our brain is a muscle. And when we start doing these outside activities as an adult, we bring creativity back into the workplace. And so that means innovation, better critical thinking skills, executive functions. It gets you from being stagnant. When we become adults, we don't like to learn new things. We become experts in what we do. And it is uncomfortable when something new comes around and we have to change. So what happens is we need to get back to this beginner's mind. And when I talk about this is really, for me, when I asked that question to myself, I said, what did I like to do as a child? I loved music. But did I love classical music? I loved rock. If I was going to play music again, I wanted to play rock. Well, what happened was my older son decided to play guitar. So I thought, well, I could play bass guitar and play with him. And then my younger son decided to sing and play drums. And then my husband didn't want to be left out, and he started playing the keyboard, and now we're the Ventinators. Now, the thing about this is this was an unexpected outcome. But let me tell you, starting off doing this sucked, okay? And I'll tell you why. I went to beginner guitar lessons, which was supposed to be beginner. All the other adults in there were supposed to be beginner. But it was a bunch of men that had been playing in their basement on their guitar that had never come out of their basement. And when we came together to play in a band, they knew everything what to do, and I was fumbling all over the place. I didn't like not knowing. It was uncomfortable. I was used to being the best at something or being an expert in something. I had to get used to learning again. And when I got used to that again, that brought that into the workplace. So I'm not a manager that's saying to my staff person, we've always done it this way. I'm open to the new ideas that they're coming and letting them go through that learning process as well. And this is why I created this methodology. Because as I went through this journey, I realized that, again, I am an accountant, it's a formula, but it's something that can pop into your head. Business plus balance equals bliss. And what that means is we encounter stressful business situations every day, right? We're overworked, we've got a coworker we don't like, we have anxiety, but we need to figure out our natural tools that we can use to offset those business situations. And when we do, that creates bliss. That's the maintenance of happiness, where we feel more fulfilled. So for instance, when I started yoga, the instructor would always say, you need to breathe. You know, inhale, exhale. And every time they'd say that, I'm like, whatever. I'll just keep doing what I'm doing. And then as I kept going, I started remembering, okay, I get it. I'm inhaling and exhaling. And then I went back to work, and I realized when I got stressed out, I forgot to breathe. I tense up, I'm stressed. And when I started bringing that back into work and I just paused for a moment and got my breath back, it's amazing how it could reset and shift how you interact with other people. Now, in order to take time for yourself, that means you have to control your calendar. And as Americans, supervisors or above, statistically, we work 47 hours or more a week. Only 6.5 hours of that week is for our own work. And this is what creates so much overtime. And that steals from ourselves. So if we put time on our calendar to do an activity for ourselves, and somebody says, I need a meeting at that time, that means you're not saying, okay, I'll just give that up because that was for me. Because when you do that, you steal from yourself, but you steal from the people around you. Because you're not as present with them and you haven't reset. So some strategies to stay focused, which I go a little bit deeper in my book as well as in my longer talk, is about the 3 M's: meditation, mindfulness, and mantras. And when we bring this into the workplace, it's really helpful. So meditation and mindfulness actually get confused a lot. Meditation is our internal look at ourselves. So it's when we close our eyes and we actually observe our thoughts, the quality of our breath, how our body feels. When we don't observe that and we start interacting with other people, we take that into the experience without realizing it. It's good to know what our responsibility in that is. Mindfulness is the outside awareness. So an exercise with that is taking a walk and trying to hear the furthest leaf rustling. When we come into business, what that means is we're paying attention to the person we're meeting with. We're not looking at our phone. We're not looking at our computer. We're not saying, hold on a second, I gotta take this. That we're actually allowing that person that spent time preparing for that meeting, giving them the experience that they needed as well. We're showing them that they're important and that they matter. And a tool that we don't have time to do today, but something that you can take away and test, is a 2-minute meditation. And what that means is instead of scheduling a 30-minute meeting, schedule a 25-minute meeting. Maybe a 50-minute meeting instead of a 60-minute meeting. Give yourself time. Go back to your desk, and you're going to close your eyes for 2 minutes. Now, I preface this. You need to set an alarm on your phone for 2 minutes and close your eyes and not peek, else it doesn't work. So you just close your eyes for 2 minutes, and what you'll notice is your nervous system starts shifting. And what it helps you do is not take the issues from one meeting into another meeting. And that way you're more present for that next meeting. And the research is you need at least 30 days to create a new habit. So that means even when you don't like it at first, you can't assess whether you like something until you keep trying it. So it's important that each day you come back. Did you like it today? What would you do different tomorrow? And just in closing, as a musician, and if there's any musicians in the room, there's something called grace notes. And there's these little tiny notes on a page that when you're a musician, you play them very fast. But if you don't play them, the music sounds completely different. And so when you start incorporating this into work, it's important to take that back in as a mantra, to not miss the grace notes in your day, not miss something someone said that could have been the best business idea that might have passed you by, or a feeling and emotion that someone had that you missed that you could have taken care of and changed your business. Thank you very much.